What's up, everybody? We are talking today with Sync Titan Award recipient Adam Searan. We're going to have a fun conversation about the path to becoming a Sync Titan. And Adam has a very unique story, so let's chat with him a bit.
Cool. So, Adam, welcome. We would love to hear about some of your latest sync placements.
Well, okay, so the most recent sync placement is the Selling Sunset sync placement. It's a great it's really cool. I think it was Angry Mob and Demolition, those guys over there that landed that, and it was super rad. But I will tell you that the funny thing about that session was because I did that with my buddy Evan Kaufman, and Frankie C was actually the artist. So I wasn't the artist singing. I wasn't the producer. I was just a writer in the room. And, it's really funny because that was just one of those songs that, it was like, it felt more like a work day. You know what I mean? And usually like when I'm in the writing room or something, like I end up being the artist on the track or doing something like that. But I think it's just one of those things where it just goes to show you that, sometimes you just gotta, you push through, you write the song, you get it turned in. You get all the stuff right on it, and then it lands. It doesn't have to be your favorite song necessarily, but I thought it was really cool. It's super rad. It's always rad whenever you're going through your Instagram and it's like boom, you got a placement, boom.
What are some of the other placements that you've had where you actually were the artist on the song?
So there was a couple of Shameless placements that I got. And actually, the first Shameless placement that I got was really super exciting because at that time in my life I was like, hey, I'm gonna learn how to produce songs so that I can own all my own shit. And it was funny because at the time everybody was like, when's your stuff gonna sound like this guy or that guy? When's it gonna be good enough to land? And I did this song when I'm on fire. And I remember I did most of the track during the writing session. And what's funny? They told me, they're like, you got to change this, got to change that. But this is one of those moments where I just really believed in it. Next thing I know, I'm playing a show somewhere. I get a phone call. It's like, it's going to be on Shameless. And not only was it on Shameless, but it was like right at the very beginning of the episode. I'll never forget, turning it on, seeing Frank laying in the front seat of his car and then hearing that keyboard riff from When I'm on Fire. So it was really cool. And it was my first song that I produced from top to bottom that made it.
It was a great show. It featured a lot of great music, and to have an opening scene like that's huge. I think I remember that scene, although there were several episodes, I think, where Frank was waking up in his car.
And you know what? It's a stupid song. The lyrics are so dumb. They don't mean anything. Honestly, nobody's going to listen to that song and go to church next Sunday and repent for their life of sin. It is not going to change some little old lady's life sitting in a chair and thinking about where she grew up. It's not that thing. It feels right. The lyrics are fine. They're okay. They're good. And actually, we didn't even write that song to a brief. So my rules for songwriting when it comes to sync is either A, write to the brief 100% of the time. Your song is not going to be that special song that they go, oh, this is totally not what we asked for, but this one song is the one. It's not going to happen ever. I've never seen that happen. So that's number one. And then number two, write in general. Write what feels good. Use 4 stupid chords. Unless the brief calls for it, don't put any weird minor sus 7ths or 8ths or 9ths or diminished, whatever. Ed Sheeran the hell out of that shit. 4 chords. 4. There's a reason why if you learn 4 chords, you could play almost every song that's popular known to man, and then some. Keep it simple. Keep it general. Write to the briefs. Maybe over-deliver on your vocal performance or something, or your production. But otherwise, just keep it simple.
There's a reason Frank Zappa doesn't get a lot of syncs, and, complex writing, Rush doesn't get a lot of syncs because it's odd time signatures, and you're 100% on point with that. 100%.
When have you ever heard a Dave Matthews song on a freaking WB show? Never. And if you do, it's like the first 4 chords, and then they cut it really fast before he gets into all that. Blah, 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 blah. Wow, the words you say. Blah, 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 blah. Oh man, you can't act over that. I mean, okay, think about it like this. Have you ever been on a date or like in a like restaurant trying to talk to somebody and they got like crazy music going on in the background? Like you can't keep your train of thought. So it's like, how is an audience going to watch a TV show with blah, 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 or hearing that weird chord? Have you ever been somewhere and you're like, man, this is just the best song ever? And then they just went to the weirdest chord change. You're like, I'm out. Let's go to another restaurant. It is that way. It is that way.
You're right. There are people who overthink it. It's easy to overthink licensing. We get these questions all the time. How long should my song be? All these questions regarding overthinking it. My answer is always however long the song needs to be. That's it. You just write a good song, write an authentic, good song. But I love the analogy of the restaurant hearing that weird diminished seventh chord and throwing your hands up in the air and leaving.
It's so true. Somebody said something to me one time that just like really changed my life forever. They said it may be simple, but it's not easy. If you can take something that is simple and make it easy and do it over and over and over and over and over again, your bag will be never empty. Like you will always have money in your pocket. Like, okay, think about it like this. Okay, sync covers. They're not different. They're just slow with big epic drums behind them. It's not complicated. I know it's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy, but listen to it for what it is. Watch Love is Blind, any of the seasons. Listen to the music they play. It's the dumbest lyrics, the freaking 3-chord guitar thing with a bow now 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 bow now 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 now. She'll never reject me. Bow now 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 now. This love is blind. It's so stupid, but these people are making bank because they kept it simple and because no one could tell William Hung from American Idol that she didn't bang. Like, these are the people who win, the people who know the plays and play them exactly how they're supposed to be played.
I've known Adam for a long time, so I know a bit of his story. So I'm going to try and pull some of his story out of him. But prior to you producing your own music, which has only happened in the last couple of years.
The last 4 to 5 years. For sure.
Because for a long time prior to that I knew you were just the guitar toting songwriter. You showed up with a guitar and production fell on other people's onto the other people's plates.
Yeah, I was that guy. Like I was hardcore. In fact, until I saw a guy. So there's a guy named Dave Pahanish who has a ton of huge like country cuts. But back before I even got my first pub deal, post your motivational speech at Chill Cafe, I didn't even believe in using guitar effects on stage with my acoustic stuff. So like, it was like, I was totally hardcore songwriter guy. It's like, you can't tune your vocals. You got to freaking sing everything right. And you have to be able to just show up with no machines and rock it. So yeah, it's been a huge change for me. When I saw Dave Pahanish doing that with like guitar effects and things like that, that's when it kind of like broke me out of my shell a little bit. I'm like, I got to try some of this stuff out. So it kind of has led to where I'm at now, I think, as a musician and an artist and producer.
And you were in Nashville at that time, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I was in Nashville at that time. I'll never forget. Those were the Music City Bar and Grill nights, man. It was crazy. I mean, you had like Eric Pasley, all those guys, like Brian Terser from Old Dominion. It was like where we all went to just play and jam before anybody got famous. In fact, it's funny, Eric didn't even have a beard at the time. It was awesome, man. Like it was cool. It was a cool moment.
Well, that's a place. I mean, I have never lived there, but I visited, and you see these songwriters show up constantly with their guitar and sing, and they sing these beautiful songs, no effects, like you're saying. So I can see how you think that's what you need to do, especially in that scene. But I can also see how taking those risks again helps you evolve, helps you stand out amongst everybody else who just continues to do that.
Well, right. Like, so when I came onto the scene, I was fresh out of Verizon. I was selling phones. Anybody that knows me knows that, like, I hate working out. Sorry. Like, be healthy, go work out, go to the gym, whatever. But that's not my thing. Coming into the country scene at the time, or the songwriter country scene at the time, was like so different than what I was doing before. And going into my first pub deal and all that stuff, like I was kind of the odd guy out anyway. You know, you go to all these different writers rounds, just like you mentioned. Eventually, yeah, just like branching out and saying like, hey, I'm going to bring my unique flavor to this thing and I'm going to grow. And again, it was something I was really hardcore, like sort of against at first because they would say, oh, you need a 5-piece band and a John Deere hat and you got to be cool and you got to do all this different stuff. And I was like, nah, I'm going to use this drum looper thing. And I'll never forget, they told me, I did this showcase one time. I don't know if Reed Geyer will ever see this, but Reed Geyer is so cool. So I'm playing this showcase. I get all my loops together. I think I'm onto something cool, right? And this is totally new. Like this is crazy for me. To even use a looper is against my code. So I play and Ree goes, I said, so what do you think? Because at the time they're trying to find out because I rocked too hard with the band. Mike Elsner knows that. Like he played guitar at a couple of shows. We rocked really hard. But, for the country scene, I rocked too hard for the band. And then for the people that love my singer-songwriter stuff, it wasn't intimate enough for them. So it was like I was getting pushback from all sides. So I play this show. I use my looper. I think I'm on some cool. Ree goes, yeah, it's really neat. And she was like serious, like she thought it was really cool, but I totally took it the wrong way. I went home and I gutted my studio and I set it all up in a circle in my living room. And I was like, you know what? I am going to work on this and produce this until it's amazing. And I would go and I would start working at 11 a.m. and finish at like 2 a.m. So like I would go all day and into the next day. Finally, I went into a writing session with a group called Haley and Michaels. Haley and Michaels, I believe, was my first song on Spotify to ever stream over 1 million streams. I think it was Drunk Text was the song we wrote. But I invited them over and I showed them what I was doing with my looper. I'll never forget, Ryan goes, dude, you can make records this way. And so that was it. So then I just realized that producing records was basically just live looping in the studio and adding a little sauce on top. So that's kind of like from start to finish, sort of my whole journey and getting into like production. And believe me, like I got rejected and made fun of. People looked at me weird. I'm sure some people even walked out of shows. There were some good ones and some terrible ones, but the victories from persevering through all that rejection have just been incredible.
You've had a very long journey too. You're definitely condensing it. You mentioned a couple of times like oh, getting your first pub deal. What you're skipping over is the 15 plus years of struggle prior to getting that publishing deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the other big struggles for me is just like it's that thing where people don't realize that by the time you start making money doing music, you've put maybe over 100,000 hours in, right? So if you take the money that you're making right now and you divided it by all the hours that you spent developing your craft, rehearsing and practicing, playing shows for nothing. I mean, I was playing shows back in high school when I was 17. I'm 39 now. So when I signed my first pub deal, that was like 2014. Wow, it's like 10 years ago.
I know that at that point, that's when you guys started getting actively, actively pursuing licensing around that time.
Yeah. So we went down that road because, it just made sense. That's where the money's at, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I mean, sync is accessible. Sure, it may take a year or two to get your first sync. But again, there's writers trying to get cuts that have been doing it for 20 years that are still chasing that cut.
Well, right. And, the other thing, too, is that like there's no such thing, as easy money in the music industry, especially not sync. And I think that I get this question a lot in my Instagram from, people reach out to me all the time about Elite and about, master music licensing and all the different programs and stuff. They see me in the video and they, they're asking me these questions and stuff. And, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, is it worth it? Is it worth it? And my question to them is always, have you checked out the free stuff from what you understand in that, are you willing to put in the time and the work that it takes to land these opportunities and to learn how to negotiate your way through these opportunities? And are you willing to like keep trying and keep working at it? Because it's not a pyramid scheme. It's not like a get rich quick program. It's hard work. It's not magic, you know?
It's interesting because people come into our world too with those exact same questions. I feel like for most independent musicians, the very first step on their journey is just simply awareness. Awareness that was our first step. We didn't even know that sync existed, earlier in our career. And then wait, you mean that I can actually get my songs on TV? No. And then you start diving in further and you realize that, yeah, half of the music that's on TV is from independent musicians. And then as you dive in further, then you start realizing, oh, this is a completely different industry than what I'm familiar with along my artist pursuits and trying to get the record deal and the publishing deal and then get your records out to fans. This is an entirely different path. And then there's a lot of information you have to learn about that. That's contrary to what you learned pursuing the artist path. But a big part of being treated as a professional in the sync world is actually setting up your business properly and treating sync like a business. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, Adam.
Sync opportunities lead to other opportunities too. So if you don't have your business set up properly, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because what happens when somebody, reaches out to you for production? You don't have a production agreement. Who's not getting paid? You're not, because you're not ready. What happens when that placement comes through and your song's going to be on Shameless or a TV show like Cold Case? You don't have your stuff together. Guess who's not getting paid? You. And you would be amazed how many professionals in the writing room and in the production rooms are not set up properly business-wise. And it's sad because it makes it almost impossible to be profitable. If your business isn't set up right, I don't care if you write the biggest hit in the universe, you're not getting paid for it.
I want to hear more about that thing hanging on your wall. Can you tell us a little bit about what's that about back there?
The Sync Titan Award, celebrating my placements and the time in the industry, because it's really easy to forget the things that you've accomplished when you have your blinders on and you just keep working towards the next opportunity. And that's totally me. If you asked me what all my accomplishments were, I would probably go, because there's so many things that I've done and so many things that I've tried and so many things that I've worked on that sometimes I forget. So yeah, like having that Sync Titan Award to look back there and go, man, I did this. Like I've achieved this. I've made this happen. It resembles my hard work and not giving up. And it also resembles to me a reminder of motivation. It's really easy to zone out, especially when you can produce and write and sing and do all the stuff yourself. It's really easy to zone out and not dive into community. But I think that's what it also represents. I jumped into the Sync Titan community. I was almost overwhelmed at first. It's pretty amazing. So I really thank you guys for that. So that's what it means to me. It's actually only one of two awards that I have on my wall.
When it comes to collaborators, people that you've worked with and people that you still continue to work with because you no longer live in Nashville, how do you approach that now? Do you approach collaborators who are also actively focused on getting songs cut, getting songs placed, or are you open to just writing with anyone? How do you manage your collaboration, the collaboration side of your business?
I collaborate where it makes sense, right? Music is what I do for a living, be it live shows, production, whatever it is. So for collaborations, I prefer to work with people who have a purpose. So is there a brief we're writing to? Is there a record that you're making? Is there a song that you're missing for that record? And I don't ask this outright. I always try to figure out, like, why me? Why do you want to work with me for this project? Because I'm always honest with people. Like, if I feel like it's something out of my wheelhouse or like something I'm not super great at, unless there's a good reason, again, purpose. Unless there's a good reason for me to be doing it, I probably won't.
That's awesome. Great answer.
Well, it goes back to, like managing your business, right? What is going to make you the most potential profit for the least amount of time? And if you ask yourself that question and you hold yourself accountable to that rule, you set a standard for what you're going to accept, but be it monetary, whatever, that will help propel you and push you to a place where you're doing this for a living rather than just kind of like on the side when you're not door dashing or Verizoning. And you know what? Like, there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Use that W-2 income, help you in tax season.
Yeah, music is a great hobby. It's an amazing hobby. It's also a great profession. I think it boils down to, if you treat it like a hobby, it's going to pay you like a hobby. If you treat it like a profession, it's going to pay you like a profession.
And it's like anything else. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to invest. And I know, again, like we talked about this on the thing the other day, but you have to be willing to invest some of your time. You have to realize you got to start at step 1. You got to go to step 2. You got to go to step 3. You have to work through the steps. You can't skip to the last video in the course and be like, I'm ready. You have to go through the process. You have to invest the time. You have to put in the work. You have to get rejected. You have to shed a couple of tears of rejection. It's okay. You have to go through that because you have to build yourself up. You have to build your business up. And that's how you do it.
Yeah, rejection is just part of it. It's actually a learning experience to get rejected, right? It's not always a negative thing. I think people associate that with negativity, but having someone say no to you, it's like, okay. That happens to music supervisors. It happens to sync agents. It happens to your publishers. It happens to everybody in the business, and really in any business it happens. You have an idea, you present to your boss, and they might shoot it down, but you carry on. That's part of life. So having that thick skin, I think, separates the people like yourself, the artists and musicians like yourself, who can get up when they get kicked down, right? Get up, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Right.
And that's what it takes to succeed in the music business, in the entertainment business, actually. Because we're not in the music business with sync.
No. Right. Yeah. Well, that's right. My wife would tell you that, like, every other day, I'm like, ugh, the music industry, and she is just like, keep going, like, you got this. And I'm just like, yeah. And and I've said this out loud. Look, let's just be real. If I hear keep telling your story one more damn time, keep telling your story, I'm going to freak out. Like, and so I've just determined in my brain and my mind and my soul, I'm not going to keep telling my story. I'm going to keep showing my story, and I think for me, that's been the biggest obstacle to overcome for myself, is not being a person who says what I'm going to do or says what I'm doing, but actually says, no, I'm not going to tell my story. I'm going to show it.
Wow, dude. Awesome. That's fantastic.
I mean, it's a hard road, lots of tears, lots of heartbreak. But you know what? At the beginning of that episode in Shameless in season 3, that's when I was on fire right there. Boop, ba-doop, boop, boop, ba-doop.
Final question for you. What would you say has been the most important contributor to your success landing placements with your songs?
Truthfully, it's just humility in relationships. Really building solid relationships. That has been the thing that has helped me beat low social media numbers, no releases, all of those things. Having good relationships and being willing to, if there's changes that need to be made at the end of the day, I know, like, look, I get passionate about it too. Being willing to just say, okay, let's do it, make it happen. Maintain that good relationships. The only bridges you should ever burn are bridges and a song. Be humble, build good relationships. And I think for me, like, that has worked more for me than any other thing that I've ever heard advice wise. All that stuff's great. Having good relationships and being humble has won the day. I think that's really what it is.
I've got one random question for you. I hear you love comics.
I do love comics.
Favorite comic character of all time?
I don't know, man. I don't really have a favorite comic book hero. I think my hero is real. And so my hero is Jesus. I think that just in trusting God, like, that's been the coolest thing in my life that's happened. And I just think that, it's just made all the comics more fun because they're fiction. that's where, man, like that's my hero. I think for me, that's where it's at. But I'll tell you what, I think Goku from Dragon Ball is probably like a good like second or third.
Awesome, Adam. Well, thanks for coming and hanging, man. Always a fun time with you. I always learn a lot hanging out with you, and I always laugh a lot.
Well, we've had some good times, man, and it's interesting. Like, you probably remember more of my journey than I do, and that's probably a good thing. It has been a road, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you for, having me. It really means a lot to me. And like I always say, I've always got time for you guys because you guys have been there for me. You guys have really shown me a lot of love. So for all you people out there in the community, keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And, I'm in the community. Message me, reach out to me. My Instagram is open. I hate social media posts, but I love responding to messages and encouraging people at Adam Searan. Let's go.
If you would like to join a thriving community of elite sync professionals dedicated to ensuring each other's success in sync licensing, then Elite Music Coaching invites you to join Sync Titan.
That's right. And inside this community, you're going to have opportunities to connect directly with sync professionals like music supervisors, sync agents, and music library reps in our monthly virtual meetup and networking events. You're going to be able to get coaching directly from Jody and myself. We have listening sessions, and we also have meetups where you can connect with other collaborators all throughout the world.
Also, we post opportunities for you to submit your music to films, TV shows, trailers, commercials, video games, podcasts, web series, and more. As a Sync Titan member, you're also eligible to receive a Sync Titan award.
So make sure to click the link below or above or to the side or wherever it is on this channel so that you can learn more about Sync Titan and how you can become a valued member of this community.